Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to the testing class. Today yes, last week I have given interview in HCL, so I thought to at least share the interview experience with you guys, so that if you are going to give HCL interview, what question they will ask, and what are their strategy in interview to what are the pattern to ask the question. So all these things. The interesting part of that interview is it ended in 30 minute, and within that 30 minute the interview asked me around approximate 50 to 55 questions. These questions are something like rapid fire. So let's get started. So the first question is explain about you, your project and all. This is very basic question. So I explain what I'm doing, what is my roles and responsibility. So let me add one more thing, that this interview is for the managerial position. It is more like technical come managerial interview, and that is why I have mentioned as I am leading a team, and right now I'm doing that too. So so I explained in the interview that I am working as an IC as well as leading the team. So he was interested in what all IC or individual contributor, how you contribute in that, and what is your task to manage the team. So he want to listen all those things. Next is, have you worked on mobile web API automation? So as far as my CV is concerned, so I have worked on multiple things like API web, UI, manual API testing as well as API automation, manual testing as well as web automation. Same goes with mobile apps and automation of that, and DV testing and all those things. So I have worked on couple of or multiple frameworks. So so I explained him like what all frameworks I'm using, or how I approach these things. Like if my scope is web, mobile and API, so what is my strategy to check all those things at the early of the testing life cycle. Next is parallel execution is test ng. So he asked me about parallel execution. He asked me like, have you implemented this? So in my recent project or my earlier project, I have implemented this by using thread local to set up the multi-threaded environment for driver, so that multiple driver can be instantiated, and we can have multiple browser for our parallel execution script. And same goes with the testng.xml, where we used to provide the thread count. So in this way, I have explained him. That interview was ended in 30 minute. So uh, I have categorized this interview in multiple parts like manual testing, web selenium API testing, Java or programming questions, or DB related question, API related question. So I categorize all those things like this. So in manual testing, he the next question is test strategy. So he asked me like what all test strategy, and what is the definition and how you can implement this. Same goes with test plan, what are the component of test plan, what you will be mentioning in test plan document. So all those things like entry and exit criteria, and what are the environment you have worked on, like stage development, pre-prod or production. So what all things like. So I explained him the nature of our my work, and though I have worked on couple of in organization, so have experience in all those things. So I explained him like this is how I used to proceed with the test environment setup and different environment. Next is he asked me like what all test case writing tool you have used. So I've used X-ray, TestRail, TestLink, Excel, and other. And next is what is traceability metrics. Uh, so when he asked me like how you implemented this requirement traceability metrics. What is the disadvantages and advantage of this. So the next part is web Selenium. So I'm using Selenium for UI automation. So he asked me like listeners in listeners in TestNG, what all listeners I have used, and I mean what problem these listeners solved yours, and what all you have done using this listener. So I have used I retry listener, I report listener. So by retrying a test multiple times, I explained him like this is how I implemented it, and I use this in a test so that I can retry it I mean n number of time, and if it gets fail, if any test gets fail, so I can retry it n number of time. So I explain it like this is the logic I have implemented. Next is have you used any of them? Obviously yes. So how to rerun failed test cases? Before that, written type of window handle. So a very basic question. So next is how to rerun failed test cases. So he asked me rerunning the failed test case not in TestNG, in BDD. So if you talk about BBD Cucumber, we used to have two files. Whenever we use execute our Cucumber test cases, so a JSON file used to generate regarding which contains the failed test cases. So we used to have a different runner to execute that particular file or and those test cases. So I explained him. Next is what all frameworks you have worked. So I explained like I have worked on keyword driven, data driven, hybrid, BDD, and all those frameworks with different types of language. Right now I'm using Kotlin with Selenium, and previously I was using Java with Selenium, and before that I was using Python with Selenium. So I have, I mean, I got the any, I mean, by God grace you can say, like I get the opportunity to work on different types of environment, and I set up all those environment from the scratch. So that is the benefit like what I have. I got like I built the framework from the scratch, whether it's a robot framework or normal data driven, keyword driven, or any framework. So uh, so next is like have you used BDD? So obviously he I am using, I mean not this project, in previous project I was using BDD. So explaining like what are the advantages of BDD over the normal, how BDD solve our problem in understanding the test cases, I mean explaining the what all test cases as a automation guy we are automating. So the BDD or Cucumber feature file helps the other stakeholder who do not have idea about or script reading, so they can review the feature file, and they can understand what all test cases we are automated, how much how many test cases we have automated, and what is the progress. So I mean if the if they want to know about that. Next is JUnit versus TestNG, advantage of test unit over JUnit, how to execute parallel in JUnit. Next is Java related. So what is list versus array list. Next is hash set versus tree set. Obviously you know like for I mean removing duplicate we use hash set, and for sorting thing so we use tree set. So he asked me like, I mean where you will be using tree set. So explaining like if I need something ascending descending order, I can use that, and my condition is like I need to keep the duplicate in my mind. Next is hash table, hash map. Which one is faster? Which one is thread safe? Obviously, the hash table is thread safe than the hash map, and hash map is faster because of thread safety. I mean less thread safety in the hash map. And next is linked list versus list. So obviously linked list is much better in when we call like when we say modification or updation, and when I need to fetch anything or get the data from the list, then I will be using list, because linked list used to, I mean linked list node used to contain the data and the address to the next node. So updation and deletion is or addition is easy in linked list. Next is static, where what is the meaning of static. Next is finally finalize, difference in all those things, and where you have used this. Can we override constructor? If no, why? So I explained it. This is why we, I mean we do not override constructor. Next is can we overload it or not? Yes, we can do difference between overloading, overriding. what you will be use in finally block in exception. So he asked me like, suppose you are handling the exception using try catch block, and you need to write something in finally. So what would be that line or condition that you will be writing finally? Next is API related. So difference between post and patch. So I explained him like, if I need to update anything or any record, keeping in my mind that only the record will be updated. So if I post or if I may hit this put request multiple times, the same records getting updated. But the condition is like, you have to pass the whole body in that, like. And post is to just to create. When you multiple times, it will generate a new record. And next is patch is similar to put, but it used to take suppose I need to update the email ID. So rather than keeping whole employee data, employee ID, employee name, employee address, phone number, blah blah, so it will concentrate, it will take as a body that particular email ID key value pair. That's it. REST versus SOAP, which is faster? Obviously, REST is faster, SOAP is more secure. So he asked me about that. How to send post method syntax? So he want me to write some syntax, whether in REST assured or anything, so that I can send a post request. So how can I verify the body of that? Next is, have you created a framework of API automation? Obviously, I was using REST assured, so I explained him like, this is how I implemented the API framework, and this is how I used to get the response and pass the response and verify what is my requirement. What are the hooks in API? Have you used API BDD in API framework, and how you implemented that? Next is mobile automation. Which tool you are using for mobile testing as well as mobile automation? So which app you have automated? Like if you are working on an app in your office, so which app you are working, like it is a native app or hybrid app? So difference between native and hybrid. Facebook, suppose he give me some condition, like suppose you have installed Facebook in your mobile, so this is a hybrid or this is native app. What you use to execute execute your test, simulator, emulator, real device. So you want me to explain like, I mean, what I am using for executing my APM mobile test cases, emulator or real devices, or simulator or real devices. How to create connection with simulator, emulator, or real device? Write some code. So he asked me to write some code so that I can connect to my real device or emulator. Like I need to pass the UID, and how can I get the connection with my device or emulator? Why simulator or emulator is not preferred by most companies? Because they are 80 to 90%. They used to give the result 80 to 90%. I mean as a QA, we cannot rely on emulator or simulator, because I have seen multiple thing, like when we are working on simulator, something is working there but not on the real devices. So these are the condition. That's why companies who can afford the real device, they used to, but otherwise they prefer the the simulator emulator. And they sometimes use browser stack. That is a very trendy thing. So I have created a video regarding browser stack. That is a very basic video. You can refer that if you want. Context switching, like how you implemented, what is the context switching? Any tools you are using to inspect element? Obviously I'm using APM, so I'm using APM inspector to inspect the element, get the XPath or locator of the element, and writing my test cases. Any specific framework for mobile, other than the traditional one? So next is DB related. So how to connect to the DB? So he want like, if you have created a framework and you need to get the data from the DB, so how you can connect it? So I explained him like, by creating getting the connection string, I'll create a connection, and once connection is open, I can execute my query to get the data, and once the execution is done, I can close the connection. So in my last project, last company, I've used MongoDB in automation. So I've used it for saving my API test request as well as response. So have you used finally in database connection? So again, the question is related to the DB, but when you are handling DB, obviously you will be putting this code in try and catch. So he want like once what you will be putting in finally block when you are handling the database. So this is all about the interview. So I mean 24th or 23rd I have given 24th I have given the interview. So and next and after 25th I got a call like you have cleared. So I have given my second round now. I mean fortunately I have cleared both the round. Now negotiation process is going on, so let's see what will happen. So if you like the question or content what I am posting, so please subscribe the channel, because I mean it used to motivate me like what I'm doing. Sometimes I am helping you or I'm getting some help from you your side. So अगर आपको अच्छा लगा है तो प्लीज़ लाइक कर दीजिए, और जो लोग देख रहे हैं सब्सक्राइब नहीं कर रहे हैं तो प्लीज़ सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए. थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग. हैप्पी टेस्टिंग.